started 8.1.1 on Monday. So we are going to finish this lesson. So what you are going to do, we're going to do a few of them together, and then I'm going to have you do a few on your own, and then you're going to work with a partner to graph a new equation. So let's first start with this one. P of 4 of x equals x plus 3 squared, x times x plus 1 times x minus 1 times x minus 5. So on the test, you will not be able to use Desmos, so you cannot go to Desmos. So what I want you to do is you are going to figure out your x-intercepts. And remember, your x-intercepts are when this equals 0, so each one of those is going to equal 0. So x plus 3 equals 0, x plus 1 equals 0, x minus 1 equals 0, x minus 5 equals 0. Now, if you can do all of this in your head, that's great, but you don't have to. So there is my 4 x-intercepts. So I'm going to graph them on the x-axis. So 1, 2, 3, and then -1. We have +1, and we have +5. Whoop. Now, this is squared. So we talked about on Monday, we talked about it bouncing. So what I would do is I would look here, and at -3, I would put a circle. Some sort of notation that reminds you that you needed to bounce. Okay? Now, this is a positive. This in front, this number in front. So your A value is positive. So that means it ends high. So that means I'm going to draw the graph backwards. So it ends high. So that's where I end. Goes through, goes through, goes through. But now this one is bouncing. So I just hit it and go right back. So again, A is positive. This number in front, it's a 1. So it's positive, so that means it ends high. So I end it high. Then I just draw it backwards. I go through, I go through, I go through, and then I bounce. So I want to see if you can stop it and see if you can come up with the graph for this one. Figure out your x-intercepts first, and then see where it ends. All right, if you're not done, pause the video. So I have 9.01x equals 0 and x plus 4 equals 0. So I have it at 0 and -4. So that should be your 2 x-intercepts. Now this one is cubed. So cubed, I'm going to put a box around it. Cubed, if you remember the cube root, it goes through, but it just kind of flattens a little bit. So cubic and cube root are kind of the same. So cubic, if you remember the cubic function, this is y equals x cubed. It just flattens out a little bit. Now your a value is negative, so that means it ends low. So that means I'm going to end it there. And then I'm going to go through, and I'm going to flatten out a little bit. So that one, it's okay if you are struggling a little bit with the cubic. Not a big deal. Okay, so now this next one, what's different about this one is I see that there is no, it's not in factored form. It is in standard form. So if I take this and I look, they both have an x squared, so I can factor that out. So I'm going to factor out an x squared. I'm left with x squared minus 9. And if I look here, if you remember, what is x squared minus 9? So you can factor that as well. If you remember, that's the shortcut. X plus 3x minus 3. Then, if I see here, now I find so p of 6 of x is my equation. So I have x squared equals 0, x plus 3 equals 0, and x minus 3 equals 0. So this is x is 0, but it's a bounce. Negative 3 and positive 3. So there's my 3. My 0 is my bounce, so I'm going to put a circle around it. So I remember to bounce it. My a value is a 1, so it's positive. So that means it ends high. So it means it ends high, so it's here. Bounce it, goes through. Okay, so it goes through, bounces, goes through. Okay, this one's already in factored form. We like that. So now I want you to find your x-intercepts. I want you to graph your x-intercepts, figure out if there's a bounce or a cube, a square or a cube, and then I want you to figure out how it ends so then you can draw your graph. Okay, so if you're not done, pause the video. So I first need to find my x-intercepts. And I'm running out of room, so I'm going to move over. So if I divide by 0.2, I get 0. Subtract 1, I get negative 1. Add 3, I get 3. Subtract 4, I get negative 4. And I don't see any squares or cubes, so nothing is bouncing or anything, so they all go through. So here's 0, here's negative 1, positive 3, and negative 4. So now my a value is negative 0.2. So it's positive. So that means it ends high. Goes through, goes through, goes through. So it looks very similar to the previous one, except instead of a bounce, there's 2 x-intercepts. So you go through. So hopefully that was helpful. You are now going to get a partner sheet that you and your partner are going to turn in by the end of the hour. Okay? So work on completing all of those. And I hope you have a wonderful spring break.